Surprised my wife with a romantic weekend getaway, but she was cheating on me for months with my old school friend behind my back. I had no idea until I walked in and caught them together. Hey Reddit. Where do I even begin? My wife and I have been married for 6 years, together for 9. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing too major, at least, that's what I thought. I was always the kind of guy who took pride in being a good husband. I worked hard, made sure our bills were covered, and always tried to keep things interesting in our relationship, even with busy schedules. I thought we were doing great. Guess I was wrong. A couple of months back, I noticed my wife was a bit distant. At first, I brushed it off as stress from her new job. She'd recently taken on a project that required more hours, and I figured that explained why she seemed more tired and a little withdrawn. I'm not the type to assume the worst, so I let it slide. But soon, I couldn't shake this feeling that something was off. She started coming home later than usual and her phone was suddenly glued to her hand. Any time I walked by, she'd quickly close her texts or switch apps. When I casually asked about it, she'd laugh it off, saying she was just talking to friends or looking at work emails. I felt a bit uneasy, but I still didn't want to seem paranoid, so I kept quiet. About 2 weeks ago, I decided to surprise her with a weekend getaway. I thought it'd be a great way for us to reconnect, get away from work, and just enjoy each other's company. I spent hours planning, picking out a cozy cabin upstate that I knew she'd love. I even arranged for her favorite wine, snacks, and some new books because she loves to read. My plan was to surprise her after work, so I packed her things, made all the arrangements, and waited until she got home. But she was late. Again. I called her, and she said she was just wrapping up some things and would be home soon. So I waited, anxious but excited. When she finally came through the door, she looked surprised to see me. I tried to be enthusiastic, showed her all the plans I'd made, and told her we should leave right then to make it by nightfall. She hesitated, almost looking nervous. She stammered some excuse about not feeling well, that she just needed a night to unwind, and asked if we could maybe go another weekend. This didn't sit right with me. I'd planned everything, packed her things, and here she was, backing out at the last minute. But I didn't want to argue, so I agreed, even though I felt disappointed. That night, she was unusually quiet, almost like she was avoiding me. My gut was screaming that something was wrong. Then came the night that everything blew up. I was at work and got an early dismissal. I decided to pick up some dinner and surprise her at home since she hadn't been feeling well. As I walked into the house, I noticed her car was in the driveway, but there was another car parked a bit down the street. I didn't recognize it right away, but I didn't think much of it. I stepped inside, food in hand, and called out to her. Silence. I moved further into the house and heard faint laughter coming from the living room. The closer I got, the more I realized that the laughter sounded familiar, too familiar. My heart started pounding as I rounded the corner and saw them. My wife and an old friend of mine from school, someone I hadn't been in close contact with for years. They were sitting close on the couch, looking a little too comfortable with each other. It was like a punch to the gut, seeing them there together, laughing like I didn't even exist. They froze the second they saw me, guilt written all over their faces. I didn't know what to say. My wife stammered out some weak explanation, saying they were just talking, that it wasn't what it looked like, but I could tell by the look in her eyes that there was more to it than that. I dropped the food and just walked out of the house. I couldn't even process it. It felt like my entire life had just been shattered. Update. It's been a few days since I caught them, and I'm still in shock. My wife has been texting me, apologizing, begging me to talk to her, but I've ignored every message. I'm staying with my brother for now, just trying to get my head straight. I don't know if I can face her, let alone listen to whatever excuses she has. After the initial shock wore off, I started piecing together little things I'd ignored. The late nights, the secrecy with her phone, the sudden change in our intimacy. It all makes sense now, and I feel like a fool for not seeing it sooner. My friend, or should I say ex-friend, hasn't reached out at all. Guess he knows he's burned that bridge forever. I thought about confronting him, but what's the point? Nothing he says could undo the betrayal. I've been replaying that moment in my mind over and over, wondering if there was something I could have done differently or if there was something about me that pushed her away. It's this constant loop of self-doubt and anger that I can't seem to shake. At times, I feel this overwhelming urge to scream, to let out the hurt in some physical way. But then, just as quickly, the pain is replaced by this numbing emptiness. People around me keep saying things will get better, but it's hard to see that right now. For now, I'm just taking things one day at a time, hoping that, eventually, the pain will lessen. Another update. I finally agreed to meet with her. We met at a park, a neutral place where we could talk without distractions. She looked terrible, eyes red and puffy, like she hadn't slept in days. She started crying the moment she saw me, apologizing over and over. I just sat there, numb. When she finally calmed down, she explained that it started months ago. She claimed it was a stupid mistake, that she never meant to hurt me, and that it just spiraled out of control. She insisted it was never serious, that she loved me, and that she wanted to fix things. Hearing her side felt surreal. I wanted to scream at her, to ask why I wasn't enough or why she'd turned to someone else. But instead, I just sat there and listened, feeling like I was watching it all happen to someone else. She said she didn't want to lose me, that she'd realized her mistake and was desperate to make things right. She even begged for us to try counseling, promising that she'd do whatever it took. As much as I wanted to believe her words, something in me just couldn't. The betrayal had dug too deep. I told her I'd think about it, but even as I said the words, I could feel a part of me letting go, realizing that the person I thought I knew was gone. It's strange to look at someone you've shared everything with and suddenly feel like you're staring at a stranger. I left that meeting feeling heavier than ever, weighed down by the decision I knew I'd have to make. Deep down, I realized I'd already made my choice, but I needed time to come to terms with it. Final update. It's been a few weeks since everything came crashing down. I decided to file for divorce. As much as it hurts, I can't see myself being with someone who betrayed me so deeply. I realized that if I stayed, I'd always be questioning her, wondering if she was being honest or if she was hiding something. I don't want to live like that. I deserve better. Moving out of our home was one of the hardest things I've done. Everywhere I looked was a reminder of the life we built together, and packing up my things felt like ripping out pieces of myself. I'll admit, there were moments when I second-guessed my decision, moments when the thought of starting over was so overwhelming that it made me wonder if it would just be easier to stay. But deep down, I knew that staying would only prolong the pain. I need to find myself again, to heal, and to rebuild without the constant shadow of her betrayal hanging over me. Right now, I'm focusing on moving forward, however slowly, and hoping that someday, this will all just be a painful memory. As for her, she's been reaching out, trying to talk, but I've kept it strictly about the divorce and nothing more. I think she's finally realized that this is the end. It's hard to believe that someone I thought I'd spend my life with could hurt me like this, but I'm learning to let go. Life doesn't always go as planned, and while it's painful, I'm starting to see a future where I can move on and be happy again. If there's one thing I've learned from this, it's to trust your instincts. Looking back, the signs were there all along, I just didn't want to see them. I hope that someday, I'll find someone who values loyalty and honesty as much as I do. For now, I'm focusing on healing and becoming the best version of myself.